For 14 days, the strikes kept coming. American bombers launched from carriers in the Arabian Sea, from bases in Qatar, from runways in Diego Garcia, 10,000 kilometers away. B-2 Spirits flying 30-hour round trips to drop bunker busters on Fordow, F-35s crossing Iranian airspace with fuel borrowed from tankers that should never have been where they were. Operation Epic Fury was running at full tempo, 15,000 targets struck, radar installations gone, missile storage facilities collapsed, command nodes hit and hit again. The Pentagon was calling it the most sustained air campaign since Desert Storm, damage assessments arriving hourly, satellite imagery confirming destruction across 12 Iranian provinces, press briefings with maps and arrows and red circles over rubble. For 14 days, Washington was telling a story about a war that was almost won. Iran was telling a different story. And Iran's story involved the tankers. The strike was not a surprise. That is the first thing to understand. The Wall Street Journal confirmed it Friday. 5 KC-135s, ground. Prince Sultan Air Base, Iranian ballistic missiles, 2 U.S. officials on record. The planes were not caught mid-mission. They were not intercepted over hostile airspace. They were parked, fueled, ready for the next day's operations. And Iran put missiles into them while they sat there in Saudi Arabia, in a country that has spent 14 days carefully, deliberately, loudly staying out of this war. Saudi Arabia issued no declaration of support for Operation Epic Fury. It granted no public basing rights. It held no joint press conferences with the Pentagon. It said nothing that would make it a belligerent. And Iran hit it anyway. Not Saudi infrastructure, not Saudi personnel, just 5 American planes on Saudi concrete. The distinction is precise. The message is surgical. You are not neutral. You are a platform, and platforms are targets. 7 KC-135s in 7 days. That number needs to sit for a moment before the analysis starts. 1 crashed over Iraq on day 13. 6 crew dead, cause still officially under investigation, while Iran's proxy network in Iraq published a statement claiming the shoot-down within hours. 1 more with a damaged tail in a separate incident the same week, and now 5 simultaneously on the ground in Saudi Arabia, 7 in 7 days. The U.S. Air Force has been flying KC-135s since 1957. They flew them over Vietnam. They flew them during the Gulf War. They flew them over Afghanistan for 20 years. Over Libya, over Syria, over every theater of American air power for 6 decades. In all of that time, across all of those conflicts, the United States never lost 7 aerial refueling aircraft in a single week. Not in a hot war, not in a cold one, not ever. Iran just did that. In 1 week, in the 3rd week of a campaign that was publicly projected to last 4 days total. Now ask the question the pattern is asking. Why these aircraft? Why in this sequence? Why now? The answer is not logistics. The answer is not opportunity. The answer is doctrine. Iran has spent 40 years studying the American way of war from the receiving end. It watched what happened to Iraq in 1991. It watched what happened to Iraq again in 2003. It watched Libya in 2011. It watched Syria. It took notes every time. And the note it kept returning to was this. American air power is not actually about aircraft. It is about the system that keeps aircraft in the air. Fighters are the visible edge of that system. Tankers are the spine. Without aerial refueling, an F-35 flying from Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar has a combat radius of roughly 700 miles. With refueling, that radius extends to cover virtually any target inside Iran. The tanker is not a support asset. The tanker is the campaign. Remove the tanker, and you do not degrade the air campaign, you end it. Iran knows this. It has known it for decades. What changed on day 14 is that it demonstrated the knowledge operationally rather than theoretically. The sequence matters more than the individual strikes. Day 1, 3 F-15E, strike eagles down over Kuwait. Friendly fire from Kuwaiti air defense systems. Whether Iran's electronic warfare created the conditions for it or it was genuine coordination failure, the result is identical. 3 advanced fighters gone on the opening day. The message is filed but not fully read. Day 13, 1 KC-135 down over Iraq. The most significant single American loss of the war, cause disputed, uncertainty manufactured. The message gets louder. Day 14, 5 KC-135s on the ground in Saudi Arabia, simultaneously, no ambiguity this time, Iranian ballistic missiles, Confirmed. On record. The message is now impossible to misread. Each strike hits a different category of asset. Each strike hits a different country. Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. Each strike operates in a different domain. Air-to-air, or proximity kill, or electronic condition setting. Then, ground strike via ballistic missile. The geography keeps expanding. The domains keep multiplying. This is not a country firing missiles because it is angry. This is a country executing a prepared strike matrix against the logistics architecture of an air campaign. And it is doing it with a precision that the phrase war is hell, war is chaos cannot adequately explain away. Pete Hegseth said it twice. War is hell, war is chaos. He said it the day the Iraq crash was confirmed. He said it again when the pattern of losses became the story. And he is not wrong that war produces chaos. But the chaos being described from the Pentagon podium and the pattern visible in the strike sequence are not the same chaos. One is the friction of a machine under stress. The other is the friction being deliberately applied to a machine by an adversary who has spent 4 decades identifying exactly where to apply it. Those are different things. And treating them as the same thing, which is what war is hell does when used as an explanation rather than an observation, is precisely the analytical error Iran is counting on. Here is the math that the press briefings are not doing. The United States operates approximately 376 KC-135 Stratotankers. It operates roughly 100 KC-46 Pegasus tankers, the newer Boeing 767-based replacement that has been in service since 2019, total aerial refueling fleet above 470 aircraft. Losing 7 in a week is less than 2% of the total fleet. By that count, America is nowhere near running out of tankers. The fleet is intact. The capability exists. The math looks manageable, but that math is the wrong math. The question is not how many tankers America has. The question is how many tankers America has in the right place at the right time, integrated into active mission planning, operating in airspace that is currently assessed as survivable. A KC-135 at Fairchild Air Force Base in Washington State is not refueling an F-35 over Isfahan. It is not in the logistics chain. It does not exist operationally for the purposes of Operation Epic Fury. The 5 KC-135s at Prince Sultan were not 5 random aircraft pulled from a 470 plane fleet. They were forward deployed, mission integrated, already tasked aircraft that were scheduled to be in the air over Western Iran within the next operational cycle. They were not replaceable by making a phone call to Nebraska. The U.S. military's response to losing them confirms exactly how irreplaceable they were. Within hours of the Wall Street Journal story breaking, intelligence monitoring confirmed that the United States had begun evacuating the remaining KC-135s from Prince Sultan Air Base entirely, not repairing and resuming, evacuating, dispersing the surviving tankers to other locations across the region, which means the strike did not just damage 5 aircraft, it rendered the entire Prince Sultan tanker operation non-functional and forced a reorganization of the refueling architecture that every ongoing strike mission depended on. Think through what that reorganization actually costs at the operational level. Before the Saudi strike, the refueling system was a known, stable, rehearsed network. An F-35 pilot departing Al Udeid knew the tanker's orbit coordinates. The tanker crew knew the fighter's arrival window. The rendezvous had been executed the same way a dozen times in the preceding 2 weeks. The variables were fixed, the cognitive load was low, the system was running. After the Saudi strike, the tankers are at different bases, possibly different countries. The orbit coordinates have changed. The communication frequencies need to be re-verified. The mission planning cycle, which was already running on a compressed tempo, now has to absorb a full refueling network reconfiguration in the middle of active operations. None of this stops the campaign. All of it slows it, and slowing it is the point. Iran does not need to destroy the American tanker fleet to achieve its strategic objective in this phase of the war. It needs to reduce the daily strike tempo enough that its surviving military infrastructure has time to adapt. Every day the strike rate drops, more missile launchers relocate, more proxy coordination nodes go underground, more coastal anti-ship batteries reposition away from their last known coordinates. The Strait of Hormuz stays closed one more day, and every day the strait stays closed, the economic pressure on the countries nominally supporting this campaign, or at least tolerating it, ratchets one increment higher. Oil prices stay elevated, shipping insurance stays withdrawn or priced into unworkability. Gulf state governments, which were already uncomfortable hosting a war they did not vote for, watch their economic calendars empty out. The F1 races in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia were canceled, airlines are rerouting, banks are pulling regional staff. These are not military losses, they are political ones. And political losses in a coalition war are the losses that end wars. Saudi Arabia is now in the position Iran engineered for it. Not a belligerent, not an ally, something more uncomfortable than either. A host whose hospitality just got 5 American aircraft destroyed on its own soil by Iranian ballistic missiles, while the host government was standing in the corner, insisting it was not involved. That position is not sustainable indefinitely. At some point, a Saudi minister, a Saudi general, a Saudi king looks at the damage assessment from Prince Sultan and asks the question that Iran wants every Gulf state asking right now. Is the American presence on our territory making us safer or making us the target? Before day 14, that question had a manageable answer. American forces provide deterrence. The umbrella holds. The cost of hosting is lower than the cost of not hosting. After day 14, the answer is more complicated. The umbrella did not hold over Prince Sultan. The 5 planes sitting under it got hit anyway, and the Iranian strike was calibrated precisely to make that point without crossing the threshold that would force Saudi Arabia into open retaliation. No Saudi soldiers killed, no Saudi infrastructure destroyed, just American equipment on Saudi ground damaged, being repaired and relocated. The message delivered with enough precision to be unmistakable and enough restraint to deny Riyadh a clean reason to escalate. That calibration is the most strategically sophisticated element of the entire operation, not the missiles, the targeting logic behind the missiles. This week, American forces struck Karg Island, Iran's primary oil export terminal, the facility that handles the majority of Iran's petroleum revenue. It was the strike Iran had publicly and specifically warned would trigger a regional energy infrastructure response. Iran warned it. America struck anyway. Iran followed through. It announced that any company or facility cooperating with American energy operations in the region was now a designated target. The economic escalation has a direction, and it is not toward de-escalation. Every energy company with regional exposure is now running its own private calculation about whether continued operations are insurable. Most of them are reaching the same answer. The shipping numbers reflect it. The insurance withdrawal reflects it. The flight rerouting reflects it. Iran is not winning militarily. It is winning economically. And in a war where the political tolerance of American allies is the actual center of gravity, winning economically may be winning the war. Here is what 40 years of asymmetric planning looks like when it runs. It does not look like a conventional military defeating a conventional military. It looks like a patient, sequential, domain-shifting strike campaign against the logistics nodes of a superior force, executed on a timeline chosen by the inferior force, designed not to win every exchange, but to make every exchange cost more than the superior force planned to pay. Mines in the Strait, drone boats against tankers, proxy networks activated across Iraq, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, ballistic missiles with cluster munition warheads timed to release submunitions before terminal phase interception, and a precise, studied, operationally demonstrated understanding of the fact that the KC-135 is the load-bearing wall of American air power. Remove it, and the structure does not collapse dramatically. It sags, it slows, it gets expensive, and expensive in a war that was sold as a 4-day campaign and is now in its 3rd week with 7 tankers gone, is a number that starts mattering politically before it matters militarily. The tanker can be hit in the air, the tanker can be hit on the ground, the tanker can be hit in a country that is not a combatant. Every air campaign planner for every military that has ever worried about American air power is writing that down right now. The lesson is transferable. The lesson is already being transferred. The gas stations are the target. They always were. Iran just proved it takes patience to prove it, and patience is the one asset it has never been short of. Hegseth said war is chaos. Iran's strike record over 14 days says something different. It says war is a sequence. It says the sequence has a logic. It says the logic has been running since before the first bomb dropped. 7 tankers in 7 days, 5 countries touched, 3 domains struck, 1 lesson delivered, the schedule is not finished, it never announced when it would be. Iran has not said what comes next in the sequence. It rarely does. It just keeps following the